Hello and welcome. And today we're talking about the overshadowing of nature, the nature kingdoms, onto or into human consciousness. And we do stress we see the nature kingdoms as separate from the human consciousness in the main. So by nature we mean animals and anything natural, trees and so on.
Yeah, there are... Nature, in theosophical terms, is divided into 7. Obviously, we have the earth itself divided into 5 of those elements, which are the mineral kingdom, the earth itself, of course,
crystals and stones and so on, rocks.
Yeah. We have the plant kingdom.
Yeah.
Then we have the animal kingdom, and then we have the human kingdom acting as a bridge between those 3 kingdoms, the mineral, plant and animal, and the human kingdom acting as a bridge between those hierarchies of life that use the planet but we can't see in evidence.
Yeah, it sounds very complicated, but in essence it's not. An interesting thing that comes to mind here, Peter, is the first of those kingdoms, mineral kingdom.
Yeah.
Many people now have the belief and therefore utilise crystals, certain crystals for certain ailments or certain life functions, and one of the wisdoms states that memory is stored in stone and bone, or knowledge and intelligence is stored in stone and bone because it is the densest.
That's right. Well, as you know, as we've discussed in other pods, the Earth itself, which has a solid mass as a planet, in terms of bone, in terms of stone, in terms of any gross element, such as wood and what have you, the Earth itself is interfused with an etheric body, and a lot of this subatomic material we refer to as the ether carries memory with it.
Yeah, yeah.
As you've described.
I don't think there is anything that really doesn't have memory, anything of a lasting nature, even if it's semi-permanent, that doesn't have memory. Nature, because everything lives.
Nature is suffused with memory and history.
But
we call it the anima mundi, which is the soul of the world, which records history of time. And all of these elemental kingdoms, the mineral, the animal and the plant kingdom, plus the human kingdom, are everything that has ever happened in time is recorded and is stored in the memory of the ether.
Or the Akashic records, some people call it.
Yeah.
I think the overriding interest in this is going to be, and for most people, a lot of people, is the overshadowing of the animal kingdom into our consciousness. And more people are, I mean, we have animal rights, we have compassion in world farming and so on. We have all these organisations that are concerned with the fact that animals are sentient beings. Now, if animals are sentient beings coupled with whatever level of intelligence, then obviously their consciousness is not a million miles removed from our own.
Yeah, it's interesting in terms of the chakras.
Yes.
The human figure has 7 chakras, main chakras, whereas the animals only have 3.
Really?
Yeah, 3 or 4 at any time.
Can you name those?
Well, the heart centre in any organism is always prevalent, and the root chakra is always prevalent, as is the reproductive, the chakra associated with reproduction, which is the sacral.
Sacral, yeah.
And of course, the emotional, manipura, or the solar plexus. The animal kingdom no matter what species, especially the highly evolved species such as the cats, for example, are highly developed and share a group soul which has two polarities. Those at one end of the polarity would be highly evolved, and those still evolving would be at the other polarity, who are quite beastly. That's where the term beast comes from, probably. I don't know. But it's interesting, isn't it, in terms of animals, because it is said that they are very emotive.
Yes, we were reading something before about somebody advocating that the way we communicate with animals is via emotion. In other words, they sense our emotions. They sense emotions rather than words, and they sense the emotion behind the words.
And they feed off that. They mirror their master.
They mirror. Well, I mean, I'm very given over, as a lot of people who know me know, to cats to a great extent. Which cats are becoming more. I mean, they're viral on the internet, and you know, cats are one of the most popular domestic animals ever. I think there is a reason for that, because I think that cats are. If you want to go to the metaphysical side of the argument, cats are the ultimate example of being able to disappear and appear, to being able to manifest and demanifest.
Yes.
I mean, I had an example recently of a cat that I fostered, and he was a Maine Coon, and it turned out that he originated from Stoke-on-Trent. And they don't know how he got to Cheshire, where I live. Now, you could say, well, he was a nuisance in that he harassed my little tiny female cat. But did she have something to learn from that?
Yeah.
Obviously she did. But I learned a lot from just having to put up with, if you like,
it sounds like a tale.
This cat.
It sounds like Dick Whittington, doesn't it? With a cat with a rucksack on his back. Yeah.
This cat would absolutely not go away. He would get through the smallest aperture windows. He would not go away. You could be as vile to him verbally as you wanted, and he would stay. And he ended up being quite devoted to me. Now I think that in the end I was very sad to see him go, whereas at the beginning I would have paid anybody probably a small fortune just to take him. Now there's something in the interchange of energies there, that I can't quite explain. I mean, I could write books on my adventures with cats, but cats are the thing that awakened in me the awareness that all animals are sentient beings. I mean, really sentient beings, and perhaps more sentient than we are.
The human kingdom pours its energies into those below it. Or alongside it, I should say.
Yeah, yeah.
The human kingdom pours its energies into the earth, emotional energies, physical energies, mental energies, into the mineral kingdom, into the plant kingdom. I mean, the rapport between man and the plant kingdom is wonderful. We grow things, we nurture them, and we bring them to fruition and flower.
It's true.
And it's the same with animals. We pour our energies into our domesticated animals, and we nurture them, and they flower, they bloom, they blossom, and they mirror our spiritual qualities sometimes.
There are examples of people who almost share the soul of a breed or a species of animal. I mean, the thing that comes to mind is Dian Fossey, you know, the woman who worked with the gorillas in the Mist.
Yes.
The film, and Dian Fossey gave her life to those apes or whatever they were, gorillas. I'm not an expert on that kind of animal, but she would not leave.
Yeah,
and she lived and died.
And Bill Travers' story of Born Free as well comes to mind, and
the lion,
the tales of Gerald Durrell, and
there is such a connection between man and animal that it amazes me that we can treat animals the way we do.
Who was that lady, Lynn, who dealt with animals? Barbara, her name was, in the British TV.
Oh,
had a series.
Woodhouse, Barbara Woodhouse.
Yeah,
she
was a good example.
And the character that played by Kevin Costner, Dancing with Wolves.
With wolves, yeah.
And Horse Whisperers and all these people has such a connection with the animal that they become expert on, that there has to be for lack of a better term, a psychic link, but we would say a soul link, wouldn't we?
Such as our relationships with some animals, with pandas that we brought into the zoo, or elephants, that we have helped to individuate them. We've given them part of our human quality.
We have to explain what we mean by individuate.
Chimpanzees are a good example, aren't they, of imitation, of mimicry. And the word similar comes from simian, which means monkey.
Yes. When we talk about individuation, we mean a soul going through the gates of individuation to a human.
Yes,
because humans have individual souls and animals don't.
By individuation, we mean that the part of that animal which shares a collective soul from the bank of the human kingdom.
Yeah.
Helps to get nearer to the human kingdom, and sometimes, on rare occasions, it has been said through theosophical teachings that certain animals are allowed into the human kingdom to incarnate with a human soul, but that's very rare, and that's a different subject in itself.
Yes,
but
yes, I mean it's because from way back into time, we've had fables and we've had stories of people who could just speak to one. I mean, Daniel in the Lion's Den, for instance.
That's right, yeah.
And so on. So there are certain people who resonate on the same wavelength as a species of animal.
There are tales and folklore from spiritual annals of masters, spiritual elevated beings who were once human on the human cycle, who don't reincarnate as humans anymore, helping those in travail in certain circumstances. Certain animals would be used by the spiritual teachers to communicate or to touch the lives of certain of the neophytes and
yes, I mean, if we look at Chinese astrology, the Chinese believe the animal, I mean, this goes in cycles of 12 months, but every year has an animal allotted to it in cycles of 12.
Yes.
So the Chinese are very concerned with the animal giving traits to that consciousness of a human when they're born. That's one example. I mean, going off at a slight tangent, there are people writing about this more and more. If you look at Philip Pullman's work, his Dark Materials, he outlines a hypothesis where a human has what's called a daemon, or a demon. I think it's daemon, and everybody has an animal daemon. So that animal daemon lives in the immediate sphere of the human and can't be. If they're separated, it's agony for both parties, and that animal daemon expresses to a T what the human is really feeling and thinking.
Yeah.
And that is a very good example. Sometimes if you want to get over, if you want to put a hypothesis over or a very deep concept over, it's better to do it in a work of fiction. I mean, Pullman does it excellently in his Dark Materials. It's made up of three books: The Northern Lights, The Subtle Knife, and I think The Amber Spyglass. But it's a trilogy, and in all of this figures these daemons, and it's amazing.
It's interesting, isn't it?
Illuminating.
The symbolism of Sagittarius,
yes,
is the centaur, which is half man, half horse.
Well, yes,
and it's the aspiration of Sagittarius is that mankind can take the beastliness or the lower nature out of his nature and become something else. So the Sagittarian centaur actually elevates by evolving out of his beastly nature. It's interesting.
I mean, astrologically, the glyphs dating back a long, long time to Babylonia and beyond take from the animal. You know, there are Taurus and the bull and Capricorn and the goat and so on. But if we go off at a tangent again for a minute, you were telling me something very interesting a while ago, Peter, about Venus, the Venusian connection, and bees and ants.
Well, the higher polarity of the Earth is the sistership of the Earth is Venus in cosmological terms. And just as we reciprocate love for our animals and they love us back, the Earth loves Venus and Venus loves us back. And there is an interplay. And the highly evolved systemic order that is on Venus, not physically but spiritually, interplays with the system here on Earth, and it will preordain a lot of the conditions that are here on the Earth and what is needed on the Earth. For example, it has been said by Helena Blavatsky 100 years ago and more that bees were introduced from the system of Venus and ants were introduced to the Earth from the system of Venus, and cats were extra systemic, which means that they came from a different system. And when you think of these things, there are a lot of features of the bee, the ant and the cat, for example, to use as examples, that are not terrestrial, that are highly organised, that are highly ordered, and have not been originated here on the Earth. And it's very interesting. It's a good example of how higher organisms and elevations of consciousness can interact with lower or with elements of consciousness alongside itself, like the Venus chain does with the Earth chain.
Well, yeah, and bees are under threat, and I think it's one of the Attenboroughs, Richard, is it? David, the biologist.
It's David.
David Attenborough has said, when bees go completely extinct, the planet probably has about 5 years to exist. So what you're saying is bears a lot of thought.
Well, it's been said that without bees, there's no pollination, no harvest, no crops.
It isn't accidental the way certain nations and certain empirical states revered animals. It isn't accidental. The Egyptians
adored cats. They were sacred to them.
You couldn't it was the death penalty for anybody who harmed a cat. And it's the most under-researched thing, I think, in the world is the connection between the animal kingdom particularly and the human kingdom. There has to be a stronger connection than is at first supposed.
On a final note, Lyn, I'd like to add that the interaction between the human kingdom and those alongside it, the mineral, plant and animal kingdoms, there's a lot of healing takes place. We draw, don't we, from the mineral kingdom. The amethyst, for example, is said to be apotropaic, which means that it's cleansing.
Healing and cleansing.
And it will dispel negative emotion. The plant kingdom, with our diets and with our aloes, for healing, and our food. And of course the animal kingdom, they heal us, they're therapy for us. And so as we pour our energies into those, they pour them back towards us. It's an interplay which is sacred.
Yes, the animal kingdom is more given over to service than the human, to sacred or spiritual service than the humankind will ever be. So thank you very much, and join us next time.
Thank you.